Record. All right, good week, everybody. Have a good. Hope this week will be a good, productive, happy, successful week. And this week we'll see the whole world turn over and fulfill what we say 3 times a day. We religious Jews in our prayers, there's a prayer called Aleinu, Aleinu, and what the prayer means Aleinu. And this prayer, by the way, had been banned by the church a lot of times, very commonly was banned by the church because of its message. It's incendiary and provocative message. What's the message? It says, Aleinu l'shabech lenokol. We are obligated to praise the master of all, and that has made us different from all the other people. And then the second paragraph we say, and they will recognize and understand kol yesh v'tevil, everyone in the world, that God is the creator and God is creating them, the God of the Jews. And that even evil people, in Judaism, it's not part of the plan that people are going to have to die and people are going to this. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that won't want to live with this. I mean, they'll be happy. They'd rather die than see the God of Israel rule the world. But the fact of the matter is, he already rules the world, just not in a revealed way. Very good. So that's what we're waiting for. When did this whole business start? With a person called Abraham. Now, when we look a little bit of who Abraham is, we'll understand a little bit who the Jews are and what the purpose of the Jews are and what it means that one day the God of Israel will rule over the whole world and that he's already ruling over the whole world. 1 second. Let me fix this. There's only one creator, and that creator is the same one that Abraham realized, and the same one that took the Jews out of Egypt, same one that put the Jews in Egypt in the first place, took the Jews out of Egypt and gave them his Torah and brought them, gave them to the land of Israel that he promised Abraham. So all this confusion and about the land of Israel, and everybody is sure that they're going to be the conquerors. You know, the Iranians and the Palestinians and the Americans, and they're positive that the whole thing is going to turn around to their favor. They have the money, they have the power, they have the popularity. They've been doing all sorts of maneuverings and alliances and etc. And that they're going to be the ones that are going to, rule over Israel, and they're going to get the Jews out of there. And it's all going to turn around. The whole business is going to just miraculously turn around, and every word that's written in this Aleinu prayer will be recognized. Anybody who doesn't know what this Aleinu prayer is, in the Hasidic Sidurs, it's in the end. I think in the Ashkenazic Sidurs, Siddur is the prayer book. It's before the end. I'm not that acquainted with the Ashkenazic Siddur. But in any case, there it is. It's very prominent. And it all began with Abraham. Who was Abraham? What happened? Abraham. Abraham was a human being, just like everybody else. And he was the forerunner of Mashiach. Everything that Mashiach is going to do, God promised to Abraham. God promised to Abraham that the whole land of Israel will belong to the Jews only, and it'll be a little bit bigger than it is now. God promised Abraham the land of 10 nations, and to date we've only gotten 7, so it'll be larger. And the land of Israel, and the whole world will recognize the creator of the universe, and the world will be a good place. It'll be a positive. People will be happy to be alive. They'll be happy to have children. They'll be happy to see other people. Every human being is a miracle. Everyone will be happy seeing miracles all day. More people, better. And this was all promised to Abraham, and Abraham really wanted this very, very much, that the world should be fixed up and that people should. And he realized that the big thing, the big impotent, is that a good word? Impotent? Thing that's no. Anyway, the thing that's preventing this I have to look that word, Moshe. Anyway, the word, the big, the thing that's preventing this is human egotism. Human beings, and in fact, in Abraham's life, early in his life, that's when they built the Tower of Babel. Tower of Babel was built then, and it was all a monument to human egotism. I'm going to do what I want. Everybody wanted to do what I want, which would be nice if everybody wanted the same thing, right? They all wanted the same thing, and then if everybody wanted the right thing. So okay, here we go. So God takes Abraham and he brings him to the land of Israel. Right? And he brings him to the land of Israel. And that's this week's Torah portion. Abraham is already 75 years old. He's done a lot of good things in his life. And none of them really are mentioned in the Torah. The main thing that's mentioned in the Torah is when God tells Abraham, leave where you are and go to the land of Israel. Eretz Canaan. That's this week's Torah portion. Lech lecha. He tells Abraham, go to the land of Israel, and he promises him, I'm going to give you this land. It's going to be yours. Eretz Azos. And he explains that in this Torah, the portion he's going to the land of the Canaanian, the Parisian, the Amorian, the Girgashi, and this. He names 10 different nations that he's going to give the land of Israel to Abraham. That's it. Why doesn't God promise Abraham that he's going to go to heaven? The whole Bible, the whole 5 books of Moses doesn't even mention going to heaven. The big promise that God gives to the Jews, they're going to get Israel, the land of Israel, this physical place called Israel, which in some ways is like the worst place in the world because it's surrounded by these just, terrible enemies that are just devoted to warring and killing each other and killing the people inside of them. And they have a religion which is a religion of war, and they're really good at convincing everybody that to join them, and they join anybody. Anyway, a tremendous anti-Semitic world that they live in, and that Israel is in, and it's right in the middle of it. Right in the middle of it. And that's the land that God promised Abraham, and he still has really not given it to him yet. This is a promise that was made 4,000 years ago. That's pretty, go up to someone, hey, I loaned you $100. You said you're going to pay me back in another week. Oh, yeah, I'm going to pay you back another week. But it's already been 4,000 years. What are you going to give? Just have a little patience. Okay, what are you going to do? Okay, so one of the big things that God did to Abraham when he was promising him this whole thing is that he made this covenant with him, land of Israel, and he took him to the land of Israel. And then afterwards, when Abraham is 99 years old, God says to him, okay, circumcise yourself. So Abraham says, oh, okay, I'll do it. Circumcise. So Abraham is circumcised together with his son Ishmael. And he says, and now God says, I'm giving you the big prize. I'm going to change your name. Abraham says, okay, it's a big price to pay for such a small, small product, but okay, change my name, So your name used to be Avram, and now it's going to be called Avraham. New name, Avraham. And God explains why. Because up to now, you've been very high and holy. You've been Avram. Av means like a father. Ram means high. And now you're going to be Avraham. You're going to be the father of all mankind. Okay? Where do we see anywhere that Abraham was the father of all mankind? What does that mean? He circumcised himself for what? For sure, he didn't see this in his lifetime. And Isaac didn't see it, and Jacob didn't see it, and Moses didn't see it. Maybe a little bit in the days of King Solomon, but that didn't last too long. And even if you might think it doesn't really say father of all mankind. This is a father of a lot of nations, a lot of nations. And Rashi, or the main commentary on the Torah, says the whole world, kol olam kulo, the whole entire world. Okay, so what's going on over here? And now we're going to try to explain. Because all these things that I've been telling you about, those are physical manifestations. The point of the whole business is you have to remember Abraham here is speaking to God. He's not speaking to an angel, and he's not speaking to a spirit. He's not speaking to a ghost. He's speaking directly to God, and we have the words that God said to him. Exactly the words that God spoke to him are written here in the Torah. Exactly those words. I don't know if that's found anywhere. Even those religions that claim to be the replacements of Judaism, they don't even make up such a story like this. Exactly what God told him. He had a vision, he had a feeling, he had an apparition, he had a dream, he had an inspiration. Here we're talking about Abraham had direct experience of God, and God told him to do the most bizarre things, and just totally things that would totally destroy anybody's enthusiasm. God did to Abraham. It's called 10 tests. One of them was this, that he told Abraham to leave where he was and go to the land of Israel, because he went to the land of Israel, in fact, and God said, don't worry, it's my land. I'm going to promise. It's the promised land. You're going to go there. You're going to be a great nation. It's going to be really fine. Don't worry, I'm in control. Abraham goes to the land of Israel, and there wasn't anything to eat. Not only did God not keep his promises, he did exactly the opposite. Abraham got there, and they had nothing. There was no food. And Abraham had to go down to Egypt. When he went down to Egypt, they kidnapped his wife and all sorts of troubles. Any normal person would say, what type of a God am I serving over here? I'm out, right? I'd go to tell somebody else to circumcise themselves, right? But Abraham didn't have any regrets, and Abraham did. Why? We're going to see in a moment. Who is this God? Who is this God that Abraham is talking to? Who is this God that creates the whole world, that took the Jews out of Egypt, that gave them the Torah, that the whole world is going to come to recognize, that's creating everybody? Who is this God? What's going on over here? So man is made in God's image, right? So man is very complicated. If you just buy a simple anatomy book, right, and look at the anatomy of the human eye, human ear, right, the power of smell, the power of speech, it's like these things are tremendously, incredibly complicated, and they all work together. The eye works together with the mouth, right? You say something, you see if somebody reacts, and then right, and that all reacts together with the ears. You hear what you're saying. You this, everything with your fingers, and then but it's one body. The same thing with God. God is tremendously, tremendously complicated. You know how many blades of grass there are in the world, how many atoms there are in the world, in the physical. What about all the spiritual worlds? Excuse me, and all the stars and the galaxies. And God is creating the whole business all the time, controlling everything. Right, so that we don't get an idea that maybe God is something like the Wizard of Oz. He's sitting up there somewhere, and he's got all these levers, and he's pulling and pushing. He's got all these televisions with a million eyes. The Indians, the Hindus, they have these these gods, a million faces. So we get an idea that that's not what God is. In fact, God is not only is God doing all these other things, but he's creating me and you also. So let's look a little bit into the anatomy of God. And that's what all these Kabbalistic books talk about. The Kabbalistic books, they talk about the inner workings of God. Right? You can get along without knowing anything about human anatomy. Where the brain is, where the heart is. You could get along even not knowing anything, right? Nothing about it. You can get along until there comes some sort of an emergency, a little bit. Then you have to know at least first aid. If there's a big emergency, then you have to really know. You take them to the doctor. Then the doctor really has to know what's going on. Right. So we're getting a little bit of a glimpse at first aid. The world is in trouble. The world is, without realizing who the creator is the world is suffering all sorts of psychoses and neuroses and flu and coronas and things like that, spiritual and physical. So therefore, it's a superficial look at the world is not good enough. We have to look into it a little bit. We have to do at least know what's called EMT. We have to know a little bit about, where the lungs are, where the heart is, where the brains are, where the eyes are, how the eyes work a little bit, so that we can come and fix things up and not wreck things up. So here we go. Let's go. So Abraham devotes his whole life to God. Some people say he began when he was 3 years old. Some people say when he began when he was 40 years old. Some people say when he was 42 years old. Some people say all three. It was just different stages of recognizing what God is. But nevertheless, as soon as Abraham realized that there is a creator to the whole universe, and the creator of the universe has a plan and instructions for every detail of his creation, and that the only ones that it include free choice are human beings. All the others, they go according to nature. But human beings, they have two natures. And one nature is a natural nature, and the other nature is human nature. And maybe we can say the Jews have three natures, but we're not talking about that right now. Human nature. Human nature is governed by what we call free will. Animals don't have free will. Animals, they go only according to nature. There's some animals that you can train, but that's their nature. They're trained. But human beings have this thing called free will. And the ultimate choice that a person has to make is to do what God wants or not to do what God wants. That's the choice. And this choice presents itself every single instant in our lives. To do what God wants or not to do what, to say what God wants, not to say what God wants, to think what God wants, not to think what God wants. So in order to do this, you have to have a little bit of sort of an idea of what God is, and that's what Abraham wanted to reveal in the world. That God is infinitely, infinitely, infinitely accessible to us, close to us. He creates us. Anyone that's alive, all you have to do is look at your own life, and it's possible to see God, but you have to know what to look for. You have to know what to look for. Okay, let's go. So God tells Abraham, circumcise yourself, and your name is not going to be Abraham anymore, Avram. It's not going to be called Avram. It's going to be called Avraham. Avraham. And until Abraham changes his name, he can't give birth to Yitzchak. He already gave birth to Ishmael, but Yitzchak had the right type of attitude, right type of soul, same crazy attitude that Abraham had. And God said, until you're circumcised, you're not going to give birth to Yitzchak, because Yitzchak is going to be the continuation of the Jewish people through Yitzchak, not through Ishmael. So circumcise yourself, and your name is not going to be Avram. It's going to be called Avraham. Ki Av Hamon Goyim Nasaticha. That says because of the father of all of the world, of many nations of all the world, I'm going to make you. Now let's try to explain this. Ready? Let's go. We've already had our introduction, and let's start to function. There we go. But the Indian is like this. Key. Hatam lamila, the reason for circumcision. Why did Abraham circumcise those? There was a couple of weeks when people they got on. I write on Facebook. I don't write a lot on Facebook, but I do write on Facebook. And there was all these people. It's a known thing already. Circumcision is primitive. It's cruel. It makes the children, and it gives them all sorts of conditions, and they go crazy, and it's barbaric. And how can you do it? We got to put a stop to it, and everything like that. So I write to the people back. I said, listen, about 60% of the non-Jews in America, they make circumcision for medical reasons, and all of the Muslims do circumcision. And they've been doing it, I don't know how long, for 1,000 years or something. And all the Jews have been doing circumcision for 4,000 years. So you're not going to convince us, Maybe the 60% over there that do it for health reasons, you can convince them. And then the people just leave it. But the fact is the Jewish people, despite the medical benefits or the religious benefits that they do, the reason that Jewish people circumcise their children is no logical reason. But they insist on it. They insist on circumcising their children, even non-religious Jews. In Russia, it stopped. In Russia, they managed, the communists managed to destroy Jewish education, and they stopped. As far as I know, even the most reform or reconservative or whatever it is, whatever they're called, reconstructionist Jews also circumcise their children. I'm not an expert on that, but as far as I know, they don't believe in the Torah, they don't believe in God, they don't believe in the Jewish people, they don't believe in this, they don't believe that, but they do circumcise their children. Usually that's the last thing that I hope they still circumcise. Okay, let us understand the reason for the circumcision. It says, Asher Bora, okay, ready, here we go. Asher Bora Elokim Lasot. Right before, in the 6 days of creation, right before Shabbat comes, it says that God created the heavens and the earth, Yom HaShishi V'yavo Shamayim V'oretz V'kol Samom, and it says everything that God created, and God saw everything that He created, right? Finished, God, everything that He created, lasot, to do. This word to do is an extra word. It seems not to be there. It's not right. What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. It should say, God saw everything that He created. That's all. God finished everything that He created. What does it mean created? To do? Lasot, lataken, to fix. There's all these big movements now in America or Jewish, whatever it is, tikkun olam, fixing up the world. That's the reason the Jews are here, is to fix up the world. But you have to fix up the world according to the Torah. You have to fix lataken, to fix up. Shadayan sarich tikkun. God created the world. When He created the world, He created the world in a way that it has to be corrected. It's like buying a puzzle that has, on the cover it has, buy our puzzle, 500,000, half a million pieces. 500,000 piece puzzle. That's pretty good. It's pretty challenging. You take it home, get a pretty big box. What is this? What is this thing? You get a pretty big box, huge box. You have to take it home. The 3 people carry it. You open it up, and it has like 70 million pieces in it. 70 billion pieces. And the instructions, read the instructions, it says this is a 500,000 piece puzzle, but 4.5 billion of the pieces are unnecessary. You have to figure out what's necessary and what's not necessary. Then when you got the necessary ones, the good ones, right, you got to get rid of the ones that don't belong here. You got the good ones, then you can put it together. Have a good day. You open up, there's all these pieces. That's what this world is. The world is complete. God created the world complete, and He said it was very good, but it has to be fixed. The world has to be fixed. We have to put the bad things on aside, not to pay any attention to them, and then the good things we have to rearrange and do them in the way God wants. Right? Money has to be earned honestly. The sex has to be dealt with according to the family, the friendship, unity, pleasures, eating, drinking. All these things are potentially good, but you have to put the bad part of it, the selfish part of it, on the side, and the good part of it, you have to know how to use properly. That's what the Torah is. That's the idea of circumcision. The idea of circumcision is fixing. A person is created, right? Everybody's created the way God wants. So leave a person alone. It says, no, God created us to fix ourselves, to fix things. Isa, like it says in the Midrash Rabbah, Sheshal Alamila, and some big emperor or something, he asked one of the Jewish wise men. It says, Im Chavivin Hu Amila, if God values circumcision so much, that's the covenant between Him and the Jewish people, as Lama Nivra Adam Arel, why is a person created uncircumcised? Why aren't the Jews just naturally created circumcised? And then you could tell the difference between them and everybody else. Why do they have to circumcise themselves? What's the answer? Everything that God created, in the 6 days of creation, you have to do it, fix it. And he gives the example like Torah Masin. Like Torah Masin. What's Torah Masin? Torah Masin are some sort of beans. Beans. I don't know, maybe it's chickpeas or something. I don't know. Anyway, Torah Masin. And turmasim are some sort of beans. I didn't look it up to see what the translation is, but there's there's discussions about this in the Talmud and in Brachot. Turmasim, some sort of beans that they're very tasty, but you have to cook them. You have to cook them. Tzorechim tikun. And once you cook them, you have to cook them for a long time. It says you have to cook them for a long time, and then the shell becomes tasty, and the inside is not. In any case, you have to fix it. That's what the answer is. That's what the whole world is. It's like these beans, these turmasin. They're inedible. Any normal person will look at them and just throw them away, right? Or use them for his slingshot, his bean bag or something. But no, if you cook them, they come out to be very, very tasty. You have to cook them a long time. It's a whole big process. That's what a human being is. That's why we have to make this circumcision. We have to fix it up. We have to fix ourselves. The world was created for man to fix. And we're talking about even the first man, even Adam. It says incidentally that Adam was born circumcised. To understand a mashal, how is the example that the rabbi gave to this emperor, or the philosopher, whoever asked the question, how is it relevant? How is it? What's the connection? Why do you circumcise yourself? Because beans have to be cooked. What type of an answer is that? It's known. Now we're going to get into the Kabbalistic part. It's known the saying that God creates the world brand new constantly. Tamid, constantly, hu achidush, God renews the world, creates the world, yesh mi'ayin, something from nothing. God creates the world something from nothing. That's what Judaism says. God didn't just create the world. The question is not, is there a creator or not? Did the world evolve? Or does God exist? Did he create the world? How do you think the world got here? If God did not create it, when did God create it? It's not created 1,000,000 years ago, 1,000,000,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago. It doesn't make any difference. But God exists. He creates the world. Anybody doesn't say so is a fool because the world doesn't create itself. That's not the question. That's not the question. That's not the argument. The question is, who's creating the world right now? How does the world exist right now? How do you exist? How do I exist? How are we here? We're here by virtue of the fact that God created us a long time ago, and he just sort of went like that, and he let the world go, and that's it. And people gave birth to people, and the whole mechanism, right? God just created the world, put the laws there, and he dealt with other things. He's got more important things to do, right? In the situation in Iran or something, in Israel. But creating people, that's just, he did it already. What does he have to do it all the time? He did it once. A painter paints a picture. That's it. It's painted. It's done. It's finished. Right? He has to constantly paint it. Right? I just brought a brand new Picasso painting, $200 million. Can't believe it. Can I see it? It goes. It's not here. Why? He says, well, Picasso said he was sick today. He couldn't come in and renew the picture. But that's ridiculous. He makes a picture. It's made. Same thing. God made the world. It's made. Right? Wrong. According to Judaism, God makes the world constantly, every instant, every second. Every black hole, every quark, every energy, every spirit, everything. It's all being created, something from nothing. We have no idea what nothing is. Nothing is not a vacuum. A vacuum is a thing. The world, God is creating the world. In other words, the whole world is a miracle. Everything you see is a miracle, including yourself. You're a big miracle. God is creating you every single instant. The inyan isavus, and this that God creates a physical somethings from nothing, me'ayin, veruchani, and he creates it also from the spiritual. Okay, now here we go. God creates the whole world from nothing, but there's a whole process to do this, and this process is called spiritual. that God creates the world is a whole big process, right? We said, and God creates us, right? That's what we said. So why don't we feel it? If it's such an obvious thing, then why don't we feel it? Why don't we feel all the religions in the world are based on the idea that you're going to feel something. You're going to feel something. You believe, you feel, you're saved, you're helped, you're how do you say, enlightened. You're enlightened, you're inspired, you're this, that, right? Because you feel something. And Judaism says that we believe in God, and God is creating us, and we don't feel it. We don't feel it. And in order to feel this God, we have to stop thinking about ourselves. What God is going to give me, what God is going to help me, what God is going to inspire me, what God is going to this. Okay, so in order for God to create the world, something from nothing, or the physical from the spiritual, it can't be done rak al yedei bechinas mashikatu, what it says, avdila haprochet lachem. It depends on it. One of the what is it called? The requirements. It's not the word I wanted to use. Conditions is that God hides himself. We're going to see in a moment. That's why the world in Hebrew, the word for world is the same letters as concealment. Helam, olam, and helam, ayin, lam, and mem, same word. So God, in order for God to create us and we don't feel it, no, let's change that. In order for God to create us, it is necessary that we don't feel it. That's what it says. In the Holy Temple, there were all these dividers. There was a big division. There were doors and divisions between the outside world and then the outer court and then the court and then the inside. Where the altar was, and then there was the inside where the candelabra was. That's another level. All these, there was a parochet, there was a division between each one of them, and especially between the all these levels and the Holy of Holies. The Holy of Holies. Ki Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, Sham Hoya Makor Hashpah, there was the source of this blessing, the Gilui and revelation of the Shekhinah, of God's presence. It was in the Holy of Holies. The Creator was revealed in the Holy of Holies. The Creator was revealed. You go into the Holy of Holies, and if there was one wrong, that the power was so great, the energy of the creative force was so great that no one could go in there. Only the holy priest could go in once a year, and he had to have exactly the right thoughts and do exactly the right deeds. And he could only go in by virtue of the fact that he was commanded to go in. The Holy of Holies. That's called feeling the Creator. He had to totally not think or feel himself. Liot hashpa nimshach misham, and from the Holy of Holies was in Yerushalayim, came godliness and the creative force to the whole world. Misham la'ala lo yal yadei gilui. It wasn't so real. Like from the Holy of Holies, this creative force was not revealed so much. From the Holy of Holies to the Holy, and from the Holy, kach hayakol echad. Everything was one. So really, God is one, and He's everywhere, but it's divided. It's separated. Because God wants to create us people, and that we'll have total free will. Why He wanted to do such a thing, I don't know, but that's what He did. That's the fact of the business. This is the separation that separates between the Holy of Holies and the holy, and then between the holy and the mundane. That there was the revelation of God's presence. The Bechinas Kodesh, from the Holy of Holies came to the level of Kodesh. But the next level was called Holy. The Holy of Holies, that's where the tablets were. And the Holy, which was the next room out, That was where the candelabra was, and there was a little altar for incense. We learned about it when we learned about the tabernacle, the temple. And paroches, that it says that this word Torah, Targum Onkelos says, he is Onkelos translated the whole Torah into Aramaic. He says it is paroches is a parsa, a separation. Just like the separation was in the temple and in the tabernacle, so it is also in all the creation of all the worlds, from one world, a higher world, until the lower world, until this physical world. It's by means of separations that separate between Kol Olam, each and every world. So in general, now we're getting to this Kabbalistic the concept. There's in general, this is what's called four worlds. Sorry, here we go. Four worlds. When God started creating, so there's four worlds that he created, so to speak. So first of all, there's the world which is called the world of emanation. That's not really created. It's an emanated world. That's called Atzilut. And another simple term, that's called the world of godliness. Atzilut. That's where we get these 10 sfirot, the 10 aspects of God. That's talking about Atzilut. When we say something is holy, that means the world of Atzilut. That's what's called Atzilut. It's not really a world, it's not separate, it's a dimension. It's a dimension that encompasses everything below it. Then the next dimension, which is lower, that's called the world of Bria. So the world of Atzilut, that's like the Holy of Holies. And the world of Bria, that's like the holy. And the world of Yetzirah, that's like the outer courtyard, the inner courtyard. And the world of Asiya, that's this physical world, that's like outside of the temple. Outside of the temple. So, but God is one, but there's these concealments that conceal, that don't allow us to see God's oneness. That's what it means in Mechadish Betuvo, that God creates the world every single instant, me and you, and every single atom and planet and angel. He renews everything constantly. The angels know this. They feel it. That's why they're all screaming and burning up and everything like that, because they're just, they're just freaked out constantly by the fact that they're being created. It's just such an amazing miracle. And they feel the creator, that God creates the world from nothing to something. Hu al yedei chidush, machadesh. God has to renew the world. It says God renews the world. A machadesh betuvo. God renews the world constantly. This is in our prayers. We say the blessing before Shema Yisrael in the morning. The Jewish prayers, by the way, are built from below to above according to these four worlds. Right, the beginning of the prayers is like this low world of Asiya, and then go up to a little bit higher, the Psalms of King David. We say that's like the world of Yetzirah, and then the world of Bria. That's the higher level. That's like when we say Shema Yisrael, and Atzilut is when Shmona Esrei. This is supposed to be. So, but in any case, God renews the whole entire business constantly, every instant, from nothing to something. I mean, not only does he renew the world every instant, he renews time. Time is just a creation. This is by means of a renewal. A parsa, there has to be a separation, which jenasa or chadash. So here we have another way of looking at it. God's creative force is changed, and it's articulated so that it can be relevant to the dimension which is below. So each and every level of creation has to have a new sort of type of light. It comes through this, like people look at it, eclipse. They have to look at it through the black lenses and things like that in order to see it. So it blocks out the sun. I thought they wanted to see the sun. And what are they putting a black thing for? It blocks it out. So the answer is no. Too much is not good. They can't receive it. They want to see the same thing, this low world. We can't receive too much godliness, so there has to be a separation between one world and the other. Okay. The Ein Zeh Mimahut, or a Rishon, this is not like the first light that came down. Shir Mishtalshel, this becomes another division and another division, until finally this physical world comes out. Let's just do a little bit more. But yesh kama minim esachim. There's a lot of different levels of separation. I'm avdiling. I'm stopped because I hear these explosions all over the Hamas, God blot their name out forever. They're shooting bombs. They've been shooting bombs. They thought they already shot 4,000 missiles at Israel. Already 4,000. And we have our Iron Dome system that took down 1,000 of them. Who stopped the other 3,000? That's what we're learning about right now.
You hear sirens?
No, there were no sirens. Sometimes when it's in Kfar Chabad, we hear the sirens very loudly. If the windows are open, we can hear in the area. We can hear it. So last night there was a siren in Kfar Chabad. On Shabbat there was 2 sirens. The day before that there was like 4 sirens. But miraculously nobody gets killed, right? It's just the whole thing is just we're just protected by God. I say it's a miracle that we can breathe. God's love is so thick in the air. It's amazing you can even breathe. The protection is just incredible. We can't. Okay, let's continue. That's why I stopped it. Okay, so why don't we see God? Why don't we feel God? So he says, listen, first of all, don't feel that bad that you don't feel God, because even the angels, they don't feel God. They feel a little bit of God. Is good, true. We don't feel even a little bit, but that's by virtue of that fact that we don't feel God. We're alive, we're existing. If not, it would just be too much. It would be like looking at the sun, looking at the eclipse without the concealment. So there's common meaning. There's many different types of divisions. Sheyesh od bechinas. There's another level, and we say on Motzi Shabbat, amavdil ben kodesh lachol, that we separate from holy to mundane. That's what we did last night. Take a cup of wine and we make what's called havdalah. Shum masach amavdil gamur. This is a total dividing between kodesh, holy, and chol, and mundane. This is a total separation. She'enu domeh laparsha. It's not like the separation that divides between the holy and the holy of holies. The separation that divides between the holy and the holy of holies, that's something like I said, looking at the eclipse through a dark glass. A little bit comes through. But God didn't want that. He didn't want even a little bit to be revealed in this world. God is only accessible by faith, also by understanding. But understanding can only bring you to the ideas. The actual feeling of it, that God is really creating me, is only through faith, and that's a power which we have to, it's a sense that we have to awaken inside of it. Everybody has it. And that's called a division between Kodesh L'chol, Shezeu derech ishtaushlus, oto or atzmo, shenidgashem. Then this light becomes so thick, it becomes changed that the light itself changes even after it's Oto or Atzmo, Shinidgashan, it became physical. And now the Rebbe is going to say, between all the upper worlds, that's limiting the light, so it becomes less and less revealed, like the dark glass to see the eclipse. The upper worlds, they can sense a little bit of godliness. That's why the angels are all burning up. Which is not the case ben Kodesh L'chol, which is not the case between the holy and the mundane. This is a Masach Malim and Master. This conceals totally until it's separated holiness, godliness from the world. Like it says that there's this, from this comes all the evil in the world, that people think that they are God. Paro, it says that the river belongs to me and I created myself. Nevertheless, God enlivens everything. And they realize that there must be some creator up there somewhere. So they say that, okay, God is totally separate from the world, nothing to do with the world. He's the God of gods. The Enu Kofrim Mamish, and they don't deny God totally, like Paro did. Bezeu Hodu Elokei Elokim. When Moses came along, Paro admitted that there was such a thing as God. That's what we say, Elokei Elokim Kila Olam Chazda. We're going to do this tomorrow. Hashpal mi Olam ad Olam, Shu b'chinas Elokei Elokim, b'makom Helen v'Hester, that God makes a total concealment. And that's going to be the secret of the circumcision to remove total concealment so that we're able to at least have some feeling, an approach to the Creator, as we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. And now let's do the Devar Malchut. Oh, Malchut, stop the share. And let's stop the recording.